Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I have a very special guest. She is Sri Lankan Ambassador to Nepal, Her Excellency Miss Himalee Subhashini Arunatilaka. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
So I just want to know today, as we start off, what were your thoughts about Nepal before you came to this country?
Well, first of all, Nepal is known in Sri Lanka obviously for being the land of birth of Prince Siddhartha, who later became Lord Buddha. And in fact, I had visited Nepal about 26 years ago, before I joined the Foreign Service. I don't think I had like any special views or thoughts like what it was going to be like. But obviously, as a Buddhist, being a Buddhist, I was very happy that I was going to come to Nepal because of Lumbini.
Okay, that's interesting. What has been your favorite thing about Nepal since you've been here for 2 years?
I would say the people. The people of Nepal are very friendly, very hospitable, very welcoming. And I've always felt very much at home here. So that has been the biggest plus point, I would say. So working in Nepal has not been difficult at all. Of course, unfortunately, we had the pandemic, but that was beyond anyone's control. But yeah, I think the people.
Just out of context, as you are so familiar with the people, I want to know, is there any kind of food that you have enjoyed in our country, like the Nepalese food? Because I think it's not that different with Sri Lankan food and Nepalese food. But then is there any favorite food that you would prefer eating in Nepal?
It's difficult to pick one favorite food. As you said, there are many similarities. Yes, we use the same kind of spices. Our food is, I would say, a little bit chili hot, spicy. But there are many similarities, particularly the vegetables and in fact even the yomari, you know, the Nevari sweet. We have something very similar in Sri Lanka called lavaria. It's in fact made in the same kind of, in a similar kind of way with rice flour filled with a mixture made of coconut and jaggery, and it even looks the same. Of course, the yomari, there's a very intricate handcrafting kind of method to making it, but I have found many similarities, and I would say the labsi chutney is something that I particularly like.
Do you find labsi chutney back in Sri Lanka?
No, we don't. Actually, we don't have labsi in Sri Lanka.
I think it's only Nepal that we have labsi. Yes. So anyway, that's nice. Okay, moving on to our next question. How do you describe the overall relationship of Sri Lanka and Nepal?
Sri Lanka and Nepal have been friends for a very long time. In fact, even Nepali leaders have described it as a relationship where we have not had any friction or any issue. So we don't have any bilateral issues. So in that sense, it's a pleasure to be the ambassador of Sri Lanka in Nepal. You know, of course, the diplomatic relations, formal diplomatic relations were established in 1957. But our relations go back to the time of Lord Buddha, in fact, and the Mahavansa, which records Sri Lanka's history, written history, talks about 3 visits by Lord Buddha to Sri Lanka, and also it talks about a marriage between a Shakya princess from Nepal to the 2nd king of Sri Lanka, King Panduvasdev, Princess Baddakachayana, who was actually the daughter of Pandushakya, King Pandushakya, whose father was Amitodana, and Amitodana was the brother of King Suddhodana, who was Prince Siddhartha's father. So there's that kind of close connection from ancient times.
Well before politics.
Yes. So this friendship has continued throughout, and I think that the connection, the friendship between the peoples of our 2 countries is the bedrock of our bilateral relations even today. And today, of course, politically we have very close relations, and that is regardless of whichever government is in power in either country, which is a very positive thing. And like I said, the cultural relations are very, very strong, and now we have expanded a little bit these relations to include areas like trade, education, defense, investment, sports. So there are many areas like that where we have very good cooperation.
So, as we know, Nepal and Sri Lanka being two distinctive countries, and in terms of natural beauties, like it's totally two different things. One is completely landlocked country, another one is the island, and it's full of beaches, and our country is full of mountains. And in that context, like including Nepal and also Sri Lanka, both of them, they have been a holiday destination for many Europeans, and I think very less amount of Asians. But in terms of within our countries, like in Sri Lanka and in Nepal, I think we rarely see Sri Lankan tourists here, but these days, because of Buddha, people are traveling in. But then we are still not so aware, like people, they would want to go to Western world instead. So in that context, do you think we can promote tourism within our two countries as well? And to do that, what measures do you think our country should take?
Very good question. This was something that we had been working on from the embassy side from the time that I came, and I'm very happy to tell you that during my tenure I have been able to see the operation, the commencement of direct flights by Sri Lankan Airlines, that is Sri Lanka's national carrier, from Colombo to Kathmandu. They started on the 31st of August, and now they fly 4 times a week. So that's quite a number of flights. So this has been a huge boost to promote tourism, because previously whenever I speak to the travel industry here, they have been telling me that lack of direct air connectivity is a huge obstacle to promoting tourism. So I think the first hurdle has been overcome, and the next one is, of course, to promote the two countries in Kathmandu and in Nepal and in Sri Lanka. As you said, I think from a long time ago, many travelers from Europe and elsewhere have kind of done joint destinations between Nepal and Sri Lanka because of the mountains in Nepal and the beaches in Sri Lanka. So this is something we can promote once again, particularly now given the direct flight, which is just 3.5 hours, of flying time. Then, of course, we also have the Buddhist Circuit, the Buddhist linkages, and also the Hindu linkages. Sri Lanka is also home to a lot of Buddhist sites, which are very often visited by Nepali tourists. But we also have a number of Hindu sites of importance, particularly sites that are very closely associated with the Ramayana. So I think those also the Nepali visitors, obviously who are majority Hindu, will find very interesting. And Nepal, of course, is home to Lumbini. So we have a large number of pilgrims who come to Lumbini every year. And these are links that I think we can use to promote tourism, apart from, of course, the natural beauty, as you mentioned, in both the countries.
I've already said there are so many similarities with the culture, with the religion, and I think both the countries are very diverse in a way. So just to know more, like what are the differences or the similarities you find? Because you being there and you have been here now, you've seen the differences more closely because you have lived here for 2 years. So how would you tell the differences and the similarities that you find of two countries?
Similarities, obviously the cultural similarities, we are very alike in that sense. And I think that's why I feel very much at home here, because the people are very the same, hospitable, welcoming, very warm. So those are, and the food also. So when you talk of culture, it's the people, the cuisine, all those things come together, the religion. Differences, of course, as you also mentioned, Nepal is landlocked, surrounded by land, whereas Sri Lanka is surrounded by the ocean. So that is the biggest difference, I would say. Other differences, actually, I mean, we are both South Asian neighbors. So I think we have a very historically, spiritually, we have a lot of things in common. And even when you look at our perspectives, our aspirations, particularly in international fora and regional fora, they are very similar. So I think our two countries have a lot more similarities than differences.
Okay, moving on to our next question. Let's get into your personal life. So, can you tell us more about your personal journey as a diplomat?
Yeah, now I have been in the Sri Lankan Foreign Service for 23 years, and it was my father actually who encouraged me to join the Foreign Service. As a student in school in Sri Lanka, I have always found languages to be quite interesting. So I was more into languages rather than into science or maths or things like that. So he thought that the Foreign Service was a good career path for me, and he encouraged me, and that is how I got into the Foreign Service. And I have continued on that path for 23 years.
Being in a South Asian countries, women, they are not like so encouraged with education, and they are still laid back, they are still like behind, and the education system and everything, like women are not given that priority. How do you find being a leader or a diplomat, you being a woman, you being a female diplomat? Do you think it's a difficult journey, or like is it challenging? How have you found your journey yet?
Yes, I think it's not correct to say that South Asian women kind of don't come forward or don't have the opportunity. On the contrary, I have found that many South Asian women do come forward, and they are very vocal particularly on issues relating to women, and there are some who have done really well in many fields, particularly in international fora as well. But I think there is a point in what you said about it being very tough on them, and that I think is because of the cultural context in many of our countries. Culturally, in our countries, I think it is the same for Nepal and Sri Lanka. The woman is seen as the mother figure, is seen as the main person in a family. So to keep the family together, to make sure the children have food, nutrition, all those things are primarily falls on the mother's shoulders. So in that context, I think many women find it challenging to undertake career paths which demand a lot of time and attention. That is why I think that there are, speaking particularly of Sri Lanka, why there are, for example, not as many women in parliament, in politics. But in other areas, for example, in the public service, in the foreign service, particularly from where I come from, in the business world, there are many, many women. And even in Nepal, I have found the women to be very progressive and very vocal. Of course, there may be occasions when they don't get the opportunity, but I think that we should not feel, women should not feel backward, that because they are women that they can't come forward, they can't achieve. They just have to look around and see the examples. And for me personally as a woman, yes, of course there are challenges, because as a diplomat we have to travel overseas, we are posted outside. So and I have seen colleagues who have families who struggle to balance work and family. But all in all, I must say that whichever career path you choose, if you know how to balance the many demands on your time, then you can succeed.
So moving on to another question that I have is, women in South Asian countries are still, like as I said, they are still left behind due to the male dominated society. We still live in male dominated society. Maybe, as you said, women, they are more of a mother figure and a homemaker, and all the responsibility is put on women's shoulder. In that context, how important do you think it is to educate and empower women to ensure that we have strong women leaders tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely. It is very important. I think that education should be open to all, regardless of whether they are women or men. Speaking for Sri Lanka, we have free education from primary level to tertiary level. So even university level, it's free education to anyone who qualifies from the equivalent of +2 in Sri Lanka. So it's very, very important. Education is the key for anyone to really achieve something in life. So I would say that it should be open to everybody.
Also, how do you encourage women across our countries not to give up? You being a woman, that's the question I really wanted to,
yes,
just to know the viewpoint of a diplomat. How does it feel, and how do you encourage them?
Well, I would tell them, look around you and look at the examples of women who have achieved much in Nepal, be it in Sri Lanka, and always, persevere. Of course, we all come across challenges in life. It's part of life. I don't think anyone has a smooth cakewalk in their lives. So don't get discouraged even if you have challenges, hurdles, obstacles. You just try and overcome them. And I'm sure that once you overcome whatever obstacles, when you look back, you can find that you have become stronger because of them. So I would tell them, don't get discouraged by one or two mistakes or obstacles. Just keep going, persevere.
Okay, and what advice would you give to young women who wants to become an ambassador or who wants to get into diplomat?
I would tell them that if this is really what you wish to do, what you want to do as a career, go for it. But while you do that, be conscious of the advantages and the disadvantages. In any career, I think there are plus points and negative points. So, but as long as you enter into the career knowing all aspects of it, then you won't fail.
Coming to the conclusion, what messages you wish to convey to our audiences?
Well, all I can say is that now we have direct flight, as I said. So please take the opportunity to go to Sri Lanka and see Sri Lanka. And as I said, there are very many similarities between our two countries. You will find the people to be very similar, and there are so many things to see in Sri Lanka. Not only the beaches, we have long historical, cultural heritage. We have 8 UNESCO heritage sites. I know Nepal also has a lot of UNESCO heritage sites. So you will find a lot of things that are very similar to Nepal, and I assure you that you will feel very much at home in Sri Lanka. So please make use of the direct flight and come and see my country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was lovely having you in our show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much once again, and have a lovely day.